Hello, LinkedIn and my Facebook group. Beth Granger here. For those of you that may not know me, I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business and professional brand using LinkedIn. Normally, when I go live, I would have to say, oh, wait a minute, I have to do some background magic that I do to make the link work that I promoted ahead of time. But guess what? It worked before. So I don't have to do that now. So I can move right into, if you're joining us, please comment, like, share so your friends can join us. And if you're watching on replay, feel free to add questions or comments and we will see them after the fact. My guest today is Jeff Schwartz. I know him from my amazing networking group, American Business Associates. And he's a very interesting person, which is why I wanted him to join us today. So he has an over 30-year legal career on two coasts with over 300 businesses that he consulted with. He also started 6 businesses of his own and was a candidate for U.S. Congress. I don't know how he had the time to do all of that. Today, he owns CBA, Conceive, Believe, Achieve, a consulting company that advises businesses with their operational and transitional challenges. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for being here.
What a pleasure it is, Beth. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some knowledge and some fun with your listeners.
And we have some people saying hello. We have Jill Brown. Thanks for joining us. And Lisa Leviton and Nima and some Facebook users whose names I can't see because of the settings and things there. But after the fact, I'll know who it is. Oh, hey, Steve Wilson. And keep on joining. Definitely share comments in the chat so that we can respond and engage with you. Oh, where to begin? So I don't know if we had this in our list of things we might talk about, but you say that you advise businesses with their operational, which we all understand, challenges. When you say transitional challenges, what do you mean by that?
Well, transitional challenges come in 2 different ways. It could be with a merger and acquisition because you have 2 different cultures of a company that is being acquired and a company that's acquired. So where do you work? Which culture do you choose? And how do you mix the 2 of them up into even a stronger company is one form of transitional challenge. Another form of transitional challenge is generational. There are companies that are family businesses for 1, 2, or 3 generations, and sometimes the older generation wants to resolve the company, the younger generation doesn't want to come in. So that's the transitional challenge as we see. There may be others, but that's what I've noticed, either a merger acquisition or a generational company.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of that. Ooh, a little echo. A lot of that going on right now, I think. Also, just some additional welcomes. Serena, if I said that correctly, and Sherry, and Lori Beth, and Bob, and Michelle. So welcome. Thanks for being here with us. Now, you've dealt with so many kinds of businesses over the years, both as an attorney and now as a consultant. Do you enjoy a specific type or a specific challenge more than the other? What really makes you excited to work with somebody?
Well, I'm very excited and humbled when a company has retained me to help them work together. Although I've done large and small, public and private, product and service, retail, manufacturing, every kind of company you can imagine, the thing that really I enjoy the most out of all of that is with technology and software. And the reason I can say that, back in 1998, while I'm still running my practice in San Diego, California, a client comes to me, and I understand 98 is an important time frame, says, Jeff, you ever hear of this thing called e-commerce? So one morning we took a ride to Los Angeles. I met with a Disney marketeer, a Big 5 accountant when there were Big 5 accountants, 22-year-old techie, your classic internet startup, my client and I. And they were going to build this company, get $20 million in funding. It was an online directory funded by advertising. Good idea, but there was no there. So they scattered apart and they didn't continue the company. But I like the idea of an online internet directory. So I hired some developers and we built a software package where we take, where do you find the advertisers? Conceive, believe, achieve. The community newspapers. The community newspapers with circulation of 20,000 or less. They have a base of advertisers, and we created a program to take their printed product online. Then you have the butcher who puts the quarter page ad in the newspaper. They want to get a website. So we had multiple revenue streams. I received funding, venture funding from Japan. And long and short, within 3 years, I sold the company to a Los Angeles newspaper company. So I was a CEO of a company that we built up. I enjoyed that. And just more recently, in the past couple of years, I was hired as a chief operating officer for a software company who was a case management company for attorneys and accountants. They were in 3 countries and 34 states. Now, the challenge there was a technology division and a sales division. And the company was operating like 2 silos. So they really weren't talking to each other. So since I've run a company myself in software, I've been a chief operating officer in a software company. The technology people are brilliant. And they got to do their high impact, high income. They can build things, coding. I'm not a coder. Operations, I know how to do it. So although I enjoy any company, I've done food and all other kind of companies, I like the software and the technology because it's something that's needed, and let people go in their sandbox. Let them do what they do best.
That's great. Yeah, and there's just so much interesting stuff being built that I find it very fascinating. So here's a good question. So now you spend a lot of time advising business owners and businesses. What was the best advice you've ever received, and who was it from?
So very interesting, and you wouldn't expect this advice, but I've learned this. Now, in 1996, I'm in California, and I'm litigating. I have a trial in Santa Ana. And we were there set for trial, and I was in the hallway for 2 days waiting for the judge. He didn't say come back in 3 days. Come to the hallway and wait for a full day. Come to the hallway and wait for a full day. So the 3rd day, the judge brought us into chambers. I said, counsel, I know you've been waiting for 3 days, but let me tell you a little bit myself. I'm lazy. I don't like to work. You make me work, I'm not happy. So you don't expect as an attorney to the first thing the judge says is I'm lazy. But this is 24 years ago. If you make it easy for me to help you, that's a brilliant piece of advice. Now, another individual gave me wonderful advice. Back in 1992, I was a candidate for the United States Congress, and I ran for Congress in San Diego. At that same time, there was a certain governor from the state of Arkansas who was running for president. And President Clinton did do a fundraiser for me in May of 92. Afterwards, I asked Mr. President, you've had a tremendous amount of success. What do you attribute your success to? He says, Jeff, very easy. 2 things. You can go to any industry, find out what people want, and give it to them. Once you go that basic and that simple, there's no challenge we can't overcome, and you don't understand you can't make easier for people. So those are the 2 very, very diverse but fascinating pieces of advice that has helped me along my way, among my other mentors.
Of course. Interesting. So interesting. And welcome people that have joined us along the way, Sharon and Joe and more Facebook users, and Cheryl and Jill. So thanks for being here, everyone. I was thinking about, similar to the I'm lazy thing, is I had someone that I worked for that once said to me, come to me with the solution, not the challenge. So even if it was something, so I have this challenge, here's what I'm thinking about, and they could either say, that's a great idea, or they could say, yeah, no, I think we should do it this way. But I always thought that was an interesting thing to say, come to me with the solution, not the challenge. Anyway, where to go now?
It's interesting when someone has come to that, is true. The name of my business is Conceive, Believe, Achieve. And these are a credo that I've lived with through my entire life. And most people in most businesses think they must do something because they've done it that way. But if you get really, really creative and you can tell a story and you can think something else, you'd be amazed. Now, I started my law practice in 1988 in San Diego, California. I still have that phone number, which I use. Now, it's the best phone number you can imagine. And it came from Conceiving. My phone number, 619 area code, 2345678. So there's absolutely nothing you can't achieve unless you conceive. You have a goal, you have a plan, you have action steps, and you fulfill it. And this is what I do with businesses. And they can be very successful sometimes in spite of themselves. Sometimes they have that challenge. But as long as we think of what needs to be done, we go through the immersion, learn all about the particular business. Now, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a chemist. I can't make beverages. But when it comes to any of those businesses, how to operate it, how to grow, it's my sandbox. That's what I love to play in.
I'm getting echoes today. I love learning about the businesses that I work with also. It's just fascinating. Things that you never would have thought of that are out there. Something you said, now I forgot what I was, because of the echo. I blame it on the echo. I was going to ask you about, but, oh, yes, of the three sections, conceive, believe, achieve, do you find that businesses typically have a challenge with one specific segment of that more than another, the believe or the achieve, or it depends on the business?
Well, the key thing is immersion. Now, for 30 plus years, I was trained as a litigator, but I'm also a business owner. And as you take a trial, you're on trial for an entire week. You have legal information, you have factual information, analysis information. And at the end of that trial, you get 20 minutes as the attorney to give a closing argument. So when I talk about conceive, I will listen. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. So I listen and I ask questions. When I ask questions, I have to understand what the challenge is, what the business is doing right, what's wrong. There are certain things that just pop out from experience. So once we understand what the situation, let's find a way what would work. Now, some businesses says, oh yeah, I did it this way, but now I'm not. So there's a question I always ask, Beth, and you can answer it and the listeners can think about this. Can you identify one time in your life when you've been most successful? I don't care how you define success. And most people say, yeah, I remember that. So by answering that, 2 things happen. Number 1, you've identified that you're capable of achieving success. And since you've achieved it once, it's duplicative. So with businesses, when they've been successful, they're not now, let's find out what happened and create as many environments around that. What was your physical office? Who were the people you're with? What were they doing? So the conceive stage is important. And then the believe is to establish goals, projects, actions. And if you go through that, things may change, then you can achieve. So it's a full 3-step process, but within each step, there's a lot of activities and a lot of information needed in that business.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. And the idea of thinking about a time when you were successful and looking at that, I remember before I started my business and I wasn't sure if I was looking for a job or starting a business, I forget who it was I was speaking to, but they said, describe your perfect day or your perfect working situation. And by that, they meant not only what was I doing, where was I sitting? What did I see when I looked up? So all the environments, as you described it, that went into what makes me most productive, and so I enjoy myself. And that was very eye-opening. For instance, I need daylight to be productive. I can't be in a closed office, and I need daylight. And it can be raining, but it has to be daylight. So how about sharing some, no names, of course, but what was the most challenging company you ever worked with, and how did you help them overcome whatever their biggest challenge was?
After I sold my business, I represented an individual who was actually the ex-wife of Patrick Ewing, the basketball star. And she came to me. I did her contract work. She had a franchise, and I did all the work for her. And she said, Jeff, I have a friend who is now challenged in losing their license with the National Basketball Association. He was an artist, very creative man, but he did not have the business knowledge. So I was brought in. Number one, I had to negotiate with the NBA. Now, in negotiating with the team of the NBA to get the license, we think that's the National Basketball Association. But internally, they call it nothing but attorneys. So yes, the legal background helped in negotiating that. Then the next challenge, under the license, they had to have there's collectible basketball. All the balls had to be worked with Spalding. And given the fact that this CEO was a little too trusting for other people and he was taken advantage of, Spalding had a product which was inferior. So took a ride down to Bowling Green, Kentucky, a place I never would have gone but for this situation. And I kind of led them down the path of quality control. They told me how wonderful the quality control was. And I says, well, how about this ball? So we got debt back. We negotiated a credit and we got new products. Then I worked with Fanatics. So it was a challenging company understanding who their actual clientele is. I mean, they have a collectible ball. We worked with a company that does all the yearbooks for the NBA because the people who read the yearbooks are the people who buy the collectibles. So it was a challenge because there are a lot of different things, and I dealt with large companies, but whether it's a large company, a small company, a big problem, a small problem, when you get down to the core and understand, you conceive, you understand what the issue is, you can overcome that challenge. And I was very pleased and look, I learned a lot about basketball. I mean, I'm a diehard Yankee fan, but going to Knick games, Net games, and learning about basketball and the All-Star game, it was a fun time.
That's great. That's great. And welcome, Christopher. Thanks for joining us, and people who have joined in as we've been talking. So I'm going to ask Jeff another question, but before I do, I'm going to say to anybody who's joining us today, if you have any questions about your business or about Jeff's history, anything, now is the time to put them in the chat. What do I want to know? There's so much. When you start working with somebody new, what is the process? Where do you start?
Well, very similar. First of all, by nature, businesses want to project themselves as successful, good, and they don't have challenges. So a lot of source of my referrals, besides businesses directly who know what I do, are trusted advisors, accountants, attorneys, bankers, insurance people who actually they're comfortable to open the kimono. So what I do is learn. And it's a process. Sometimes it's not just a 5-minute process. It could be hours. It could be over a period of time. I got to learn the intricacies. As I indicated, I'm not a chemist. I don't manufacture food. I can't do the glassware. I'm not an optometrist or a doctor. However, these are companies which I've worked with. So the first step is understand what you do best. I call it your high impact, high income. And in order to achieve in business, you have to find others who play at what you work at. Now, I don't work at being a chemist. I play at operating a business which has that. So the first step is truly immersion. Then we understand, what do you want to achieve? What is the achieve? What is the end product? So then in the end product, we have to look in school, college, high school, everyone learned their GPAs, which is the grade point average. But in business, it's your goals, your projects, and your actions. So after we have the immersion process, we understand what it is. Then let's see, what do you want to achieve? Now, here's your goal. Or here's your goal. Now, what are the projects to achieve that? And then we do it daily action steps. if you can do a couple of actions every day to get to that goal, you can't be overwhelmed, Beth. You can't be overwhelmed. For instance, I'm at 15 million and I want to get to 20 million. Well, you're not going to get that in 3 days. What do you need to do? So understand the goals, which is very important in life and in business. We have to have goals. And then we break it down. And after we break it down step by step, we go through the process. Now, what I've seen with businesses, it's great to have a goal. It's great to have projects and actions, but sometimes things get in the way. So you got to be malleable. And that's where the 30 years and 300 businesses come in, because I've seen things before.
Right. Well, we have a question. Here's a good question. How do you handle unpopular decisions made to company policy, and how do you persuade the team to adapt to an unpopular decision?
What's very important, and I've written some articles and newsletters about this, is consistency. There has to be a mission and a vision of the company. And as you go around within the company, any employee I want to point to, I ask the CEOs of the management team, can they tell me what the mission is? Every employee should know the mission of the company. And what's crucial is communication. I don't care if you have a company with 4 people or 400 people. There's got to be a consistency. Now, for example, when I worked with that the case management company in 3 countries, clear example is you can't run a business in an ivory tower. You have to understand where the trenches are. One of the first duties that I had as the chief operating officer, I chose to meet with every employee one-on-one. And now, I dealt with a tech team, which was a lot of different cultures. There were people from Russia, from China, from India. And here's this new guy comes in. What is it, a hatchet job? But I have to understand what is happening down in the trenches. So it's a policy on unpopular position. You want to have a company that you want to work with. I mean, for example, when I ran the law firm, I says, look, I want you to enjoy, it's not Camp Schwartz. You got to enjoy it. We got a work to do, but you got to create, again, that environment. What environment do you want to be in? So there's a policy decision, have the process, have the procedures to address it, and listen to what's happening in the trenches. You cannot run a business in an ivory tower.
I think that's a great point. I worked at a large company once before starting my business, and sometimes there would be decisions and it would be frustrating. And if they had just explained why, if for instance, they cut your budget in the 3rd quarter, if they had said it's because where we're focusing our attention, then it would have been fine. Rather, when it's just here's what's happening without any understanding of where we're all trying to get. So I think you're 100% right there.
And challenges, if I may go up on that.
Yeah, please.
People are talking right now, COVID. COVID has changed the way everyone does business. But it comes to the same thing. All businesses have challenges. Let's go back in 2008 with the recession. There are other bumps along the way. When you understand what it is your business is doing, for example, there's a client that I represented who was a caterer for all the restaurants, provided all the fish for the restaurants. Restaurants closed down. So that technically is out of business. But no, they cater the fish for the restaurants, which the people eat. So your true client is the people that eat. So what they did, switched, instead of a wholesale, they've turned to a retail business and do specific delivery. So no matter what challenges, when you cut the budget, understand you can create a success and a solution to any challenge that comes up, as long as you conceive, believe, achieve.
I love it. In fact, during the beginning of COVID, when I was not ready to go out to a supermarket, I found somebody told me about a restaurant delivery service that had switched to delivering direct to people, and I was able to get, and it wasn't, they made smaller packages. I wasn't getting, like 20 pounds of chicken. So yeah. And I think creativity, right? Not being so narrowly focused that you can't shift or make changes based on what's going on in the world. I think that's important.
It's a whole mindset. Just because you've lived in a certain life or done business in a certain way for 10, 20, 30, 40 years doesn't mean you can shift. If you shift, if you understand what you want and create the ways to get that, you can do it. Look, I was very fortunate 20 years ago. I was involved in a mastermind. A mastermind is a group of individuals who have a shared interest to help each other. And the gentleman who I mentioned, his name is Jim Bunch. He has a program called the Ultimate Game of Life. Now, I've known Jim for over 20 years, and I'm still in that program. But you can have a life or a business by design rather than one by default. So whether you're in business, which I do to make my living, or it's life, you design the kind of environment you want and just create it. Create those goals, the action steps, and the project to do it. There's such a joy. The joy that I get, Beth, I mean, of course, we're in business, we want to sustain ourselves, and we have a value, and we make money. When I walk into a business, I see challenged, and then I see them grow, and I see the team, the aha moments. There's nothing better to know that little knowledge you've had of assist someone else, it makes your life better.
100%, 100%. And Christopher says, I'm considering opening up his own legal and real estate practice to supplement his full-time compliance employment and eventually replace it. I have my law and real estate licenses. I want to shine a light as a beacon of hope in these peculiar times. And he loves your conceive, believe, achieve. It was too long if I put that on the screen, how I can put the comments, it would have covered up our entire faces. But thank you, Christopher, for sharing.
Thank you, Christopher.
So I can't believe it. It's almost been a half hour. These conversations go so fast. I guess where I want to finish up would be if there's one piece of advice for the people joining us today or watching on replay, what do you think that would be? What one piece of advice would you like to leave us all with?
It's a piece of advice that I've shared with you during this half hour. I'm going to repeat it again because it's that important. Everyone has their own high impact, high income. What are the skills? What is your God-given talents? What is your passion? What do you do best? Do that. Do that all the time because you're going to enjoy it and you're going to make money at it if that's what you want to do. Then surround yourself with people who play at what you work at. Because as much as you don't like doing something, I don't care what it is, I guarantee there's another person who wakes up. Now, here's the definition of success. I take this from Chris Gardner, who was played by Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness. And his definition of success is find something you love to do so much that you can't wait for the sun to rise to do it again.
Perfect. Wow. That's just perfect. I like it. And I've had people say that same thing in different ways. Like, what if money was no object? What would you do anyway? That kind of thing.
So how fun has this been, huh?
It's so fun. Thank you so much for joining us. And the people who've been here with us live and commented and asked questions, it makes it so much more fun. I mean, a great conversation just between Jeff and I is fabulous as well, but it really adds to the energy. So thank you so much for joining me. I don't remember when my live is next week because I don't do it the same time every week, but look for the announcements about it. And Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Everyone have an amazing day.
Bye. Thank you.